Right, we're back live tonight here on In Focus. DA Tourism spokesperson Manny de Freitas has questioned government's plans around the broad-based black economic requirements. In an opinion piece published on IOL, de Freitas says the requirements must be scrapped completely if government is serious about the flourishing of travel and the tourism sector. The Deputy Minister of Tourism, Mahlalela, joins us now for more on that conversation. DM, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time and coming on this evening. Maybe as I know you're coming from other tourism day celebrations today, when you broadly look at the sector and your view, before we're going to come into the specifics of what we're talking about, is transformation beginning to bear fruit within this particular sector?
Thank you very much, Tabo, and good evening to your viewers. Well, as you indicated, we're coming from the World Tourism Day celebration under the theme Tourism and Green Investment. Well, in relation to transformation, the sector is moving at a very slow pace. It's not taking place at the rapid pace that is expected and required, especially taking into consideration that the sector has got the potential and the ability to intervene in the challenges that the country is facing of unemployment and poverty, but more importantly, to broaden the economy and make sure that there's maximum beneficiations. Currently, the sector is not doing very well in relation to transformation as we speak now.
So if that's the position, why would you have capitulated to the demand to reduce the requirement of black economic empowerment to below 51% in terms of the qualification criteria for the Tourism Equity Fund?
You will recall that when we introduced the fund, that is the Tourism Equity Fund, the then minister felt very strongly that in order to transform the sector through this investment that we are creating of Tourism Equity Fund, we need to increase the current B-BBEE scorecard from 30% to 51% with specific target to women, youth, and people with disability. But what has happened is that, then Solidarity challenged the position in AfriForum and interdicted the department to proceed on that equity fund. Arising from that, then they won the interdict. Then the process then got stuck and delayed. Then we realized that it's going to take us longer than it is expected. And we realized that we've made an error by pronouncing the 51% without first gazetting it. Because if you want to deviate from the current 30%, you need to first do a gazette. And then from there, that is request the Minister of Trade to do a gazette to deviate from the current arrangement. Unfortunately, we made an error by making an announcement. Thereafter, went to the Minister of Trade and Industry. It then became a legal problem. And then arising from that, we realized that we can't continue to fight this battle while the fund is lying not being utilized. We then had an outside negotiation and discussion with the AfriForum and Solidarity, where we're able then to reach a consensus to say, let's implement the current law as it exists in terms of the 30% applicable of the scorecard. So that's why we find ourselves in this. We felt that instead of derailing the process, which you don't know how long is it going to take, while the money is lying there, the best way is we're not going to lose anything. though we're not going to achieve the intended purpose that we wanted, but it will take us a halfway, better than not doing anything. So that's the context in which we arrive at the decision to say, let's negotiate, have out-of-court settlement, which we then reached consensus. And then we then went back to cabinet. Cabinet agreed with us. And then we are now in a process of seeing how do we roll out the equity fund.
Your detractors are looking at that as saying, well, that's nothing other than a failed admission that B-BBEE simply is not working, and you're just trying to save face with this 30%.
No. It's not like that. As I've indicated, it was a legislative matter, which the law for now only allows for the 30%. It doesn't provide for the 51%. And therefore, when look at the legality of it, we realize that it's going to be a long-drawn process, while our people that needs the money, the sector needs that money to be able to move towards the transformation agenda. We felt that it's not worthwhile to engage in this a package that is protracted, which will disadvantage at the end those that needs the money to be able to develop and transform the sector.
But going forward, is there an appetite within the department to then go seek cabinet approval for the revision of the qualification criteria to 51%?
Well, that is something that we can consider in future, but for this current arrangement in relation to this fund that is now available, since we've reached an agreement with the out-of-court settlement with Solidarity and AfriForum, it might not be advisable for now. We need to unroll the current 1.2 billion and see what impact does it make. And then maybe going forward in future, when we are able to secure additional funding, we might relook into the matter and be able, therefore, to do it properly in terms of how the law requires. That is, before we make any pronouncement, we then go to the trade and industry for them to request for deviations. And I'm sure that can be given. But for now, because we've reached out of court settlement in the context of this current funding, it will not be appropriate for us to go back to cabinet and sort a deviation and renege from the agreement that we have reached with AfriForum and Solidarity.
So you're saying, as per the settlement, Solidarity and AfriForum would have agreed to the 30% requirement?
Yes, they have agreed because it's a current law, it's a current legislation that the government is implementing. Their argument was around that why do we deviate from the 30% to 51% before even seeking an amendment from the relevant minister that is responsible.
So they didn't have similar reservations, for example, as the Democratic Alliance, who believe that if government is serious about ensuring that our travel and tourism sector flourishes, that requirements must be scrapped in its entirety completely.
No, they didn't have that argument. The DA's argument is typical of DA, who is anti anything that is aimed at empowering black people in general and Africans in particular. They don't want empowerment to take place to anybody that is not white, and this doesn't exclude white people. That's what we must understand. It doesn't include any white person to participate in this fund. But the condition is that there should be at least 30% beneficiations in terms of the black economic empowerment. That's the legislation, that's a law that currently exists in South Africa. So they didn't have any problem with that. It's only the DA who is resisting transformation, who doesn't want to see black people being empowered, who doesn't want to see the transformation of the tourism sector.
So the view, Deputy Minister, that says this condition could have been a cause for thousands of businesses in the sector closing down. You mentioned yourself that you made the mistake of announcing it without having gazetted the 51%, saying that could have been the cause for millions of employees to have lost their jobs because their owners just could not access the funds.
No. There's no relationship between what happened as a result of COVID and the Tourism Equity Fund. No. The fund, if you will recall, in terms of historical evolution, it was initiated, the policy position, as far back as 2018. That's when the policy was developed. There were challenges in terms of getting the resources up until National Treasurer agreed in 2019 to then make sure that they release the fund. If you will go back and look at the State of the Nation address after elections by the president in June, that Tourism Equity Fund is there in that statement, way before we could know that there was going to be COVID. So there's no relationship of the two. The only problem that de Freitas sometimes confuses, and he wants to confuse the public, is in relation to the Tourism Relief Fund, of which the Tourism Relief Fund, yes, it was as a result of COVID-19. We then able then to put aside 200 million for that, which was then dispersed to all SMEs, regardless of their race, and they benefited, all of them, those that qualified. Unfortunately, then, after that, the AfriForum took the matter to court in the context of the relief, not in the context of the Tourism Equity Fund. In the context of the relief, that it was discriminatory because when COVID comes, it didn't look at any particular race. And then the High Court ruled in their favor. And when we tried to challenge the Constitutional Court, the court said, no, the matter is mute, and therefore it's unnecessary for them to entertain it because it was a once-off relief that was implemented, done. But the Tourism Equity Fund is not related to the mess that was created by COVID-19. There's no correlation of the two. Why he's trying to confuse the two things is only him that knows.
So the Tourism Equity Fund itself, you're saying it is to fund, I suppose, from the last conversation, it would be new initiatives, but it would be measures and acquisitions as well, and maybe even fund expansion. Are those the three areas that you would be looking at funding tourism enterprises in?
Definitely, regardless of race. So I don't know why de Freitas is bringing the issue of race in this thing.
Let's talk then a little bit more about what you were talking about today and the debate around the building a viable tourism space and facilities for local development. We had a conversation, I think, on Sunday around how we have not successfully harnessed our heritage for tourism products in a meaningful way that would create product that would bring some tangible economic benefits to the country. The economic freedom fighters saying that one of the areas that have been neglected, for example, is local tourism. The speaker that I was speaking to on Sunday said township tourism in particular is one of the areas that we have not successfully well packaged and harnessed for economic development. What's the view of the department on how that can be better done?
Well, I think I'm not sure whether they're talking out of informed or they are just talking because they lack of facts. As a department in relation to local tourism and township tourism and rural tourism, it's one of the key priorities that we are paying special attention. We've got programs and projects that are aimed at reviving townships and rural tourism. We've got projects, community projects, all over the country, in the 9 provinces, in particular, the most previously disadvantaged provinces like your Eastern Cape, your Limpopo, KZN, and Free State, and to some extent KZN and Northwest. We are doing a lot of community projects, which are developmental projects, which are products that belongs to the community as part of facilitating a community development in the townships and in the rural areas. I agree with them to some extent that we have not explored much our heritage because some of the heritage products are not being properly maintained. And we are working together with the Department of Arts and Culture to change the situation. We've already, the 2 ministers have already entered into an MOU to try and revamp the heritage sites so that we are able to therefore showcase what South Africa is able to offer that is uniquely South African, that you can't find anywhere in the world. Because when you go around and try to market South Africa, the question that is being asked is, what is it that is uniquely South African? And our heritage, our history is very unique. And therefore, you need to leverage on it so that we are able to use it for the benefits of our people and be able to showcase the best that South Africa is able to offer. So that's what we are engaging upon as a department. But as you know, tourism is a concurrent function. So we're working together with provincial governments, various agencies, and including municipalities. But it's a long journey that all of us must appreciate, that the tourism has not been properly transformed. And therefore, it is still a very closed industry, which we have got an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that we open it and make sure that it benefits all South Africans, regardless where they are, in the rural areas, in the township, in the small torpes. That's what we are engaging upon as the department, together with the government as a whole.
So, I mean, I suppose that would then also address the point, for example, that is raised by the IFP, which I suppose would be true in what you're saying, that there could be plans, as you're mentioning, to support local tourism. There could be plans for heritage preservation. We'll talk a little bit more about that and how you plan to protect heritage. But, for example, if you then create this amazing outfit, you've got this fantastic landscape, you've got this fantastic product, but due to bad roads, you can't get people there because the roads are just unworkable, right? So, and so people who would otherwise want to come and have that experience would be forced to go elsewhere where at least the roads are drivable.
Well, that's the biggest challenge, Thabo, that we are confronted with. It's a very worrying factor to us in the tourism sector that we've got products, we're marketing these products, but a sizable number of the products are not accessible because of the condition of our provincial road and municipal road. It's a very worrying matter. We are engaging with provincial governments, making special appeal to them to enable tourism to thrive. And the only way of enabling tourism to reach the maximum point that is required to be is for provincial governments and municipalities to at least, we're pleading to them to at least let them, within their infrastructure development, prioritize what we call tourism route, so that you are able to, because once you do that, you are not just enabling tourism, but you are enabling the entire value chain of the economy. That will then able to create more opportunities beyond just tourism. So that's the matter that we are engaging through a forum of departments with the DGs and everybody else, and also through MINMEC, to be able to say how best collectively do we confront this situation of access. Because if tourism products are available and not accessible, marketing them will not be helpful, because people will go once there, and when they leave, they will not going to recommend to anyone. They will not enjoy the experience that they're supposed to be enjoying, and therefore it will have a very negative impact. So it's something that we are aware of, and we're worried about it, and we hope and believe that the various departments at the provincial level and municipalities will be able to respond to our call. You will know that at least national government is doing its level best through Central to ensure that our routes are drivable. So all the routes that lead to tourism attraction and in the national route, we can guarantee that access it's one of the best qualities that you can find.
Yeah. So one of the vibrant spaces that generally would be filled with visitors is Vilakazi Street. Is around the area of political tourism. One of the I suppose one of the strongest areas that we also have in South Africa. There's also the question of Lily's Leaf, and one of the questions was raised is, why are we failing to preserve and protect that kind of heritage where these products, at least once or twice, we read headlines that they nearly went under the hammer because they were just not profitable enough to keep going?
Yeah, as I've indicated, the challenge has been, as you know how government sometimes works. Sometimes we work in silos to protect our turf, unnecessary so. Hence the effort to introduce the district development model. As you know, the maintenance and of the heritage sites is a preview of the Department of Arts and Culture. We have not been working at the maximum collaboration that one would have expected. As I've indicated, recently the minister has engaged with the Minister of Arts and Culture, realizing of the problem, and then entered into MOU with a view of sharing whatsoever resources that is at our disposal and be able to improve the quality of the heritage site, so that we are able to maximize the product to the benefit of not just South Africans, but to the benefit of the tourism sector, and be able therefore to sell it to the world with a view of maximizing the arrival to South Africa and attract as many tourists as possible to be able to see what South Africa is able to offer.
And how are you doing on that score, particularly of because, for example, if we look at China, I think is one country that is cited as an example of how they are able to fund the preservation of their heritage, because certainly that could, as you say, work out to be a costly exercise, the maintenance thereof. But they are saying one way in which you fund preservation of heritage is by encouraging local travel, local engagement, and getting locals particularly to frequent these spaces and do a little bit more. I know we have a very strong short-left kind of campaign. Is it still as effective as it used to be, or are there new innovations that you're bringing on that short-left campaign that would encourage more locals to travel?
No, I should think it is working extremely well. If you look at the domestic market, firstly, it was able to some extent sustain the industry during the COVID-19 lockdown period. But if you look at the domestic market in terms of numbers and recovery, it has surpassed the 2019 in terms of domestic market. Most South Africans are now traveling. Most South Africans have realized the cost benefit of traveling and exploring their own country. They have embraced the campaigns that we have been engaging on activation of the domestic market. They have responded in an amazing way. Hence, we've reached the post-COVID-19 at a quicker pace than we have expected. We need to sustain that. We need to increase that so that exactly what the Chinese are doing, we shift away, because the problem historically has been that the sector has been dependent on the inbound tourism, on the international market, and neglected for years the domestic market. COVID has then taught us that it is inappropriate because the international market cannot be able to sustain the industry. That's why we then engage on activations, and the response from the South Africans was very amazing, and we want to thank them for responding in a manner that they've done, for the way that they've taken upon themselves to contribute towards the revitalization and the recovery of the sector. If we have seen this weekend, this long weekend, it was just massive all over. Most of the accommodations were fully booked. Even in rural areas, you could not easily find an accommodation. This was also contributed by, first and foremost, the short-left campaign. As you are aware, that between the 14th and the 10th, we were campaigning around providing for services at a reduce up to 50%, which the private sector came in and made that a offer, and then people were able to use it. Secondly, as you know, SunPark had an open week, which ended on Sunday. So that on its own was able to motivate more South Africans to visit our national parks, and they were able, therefore, to see what beauty is the country able to offer, what is it that South Africa is able to offer for them, and they're able to explore it and enjoy it, and it was just amazing. So we have to sustain that. We have to work very hard, working together with the private sector, working together with all the spheres of government, to make a tourism and everybody's enterprise at the end.
Deputy Minister, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on this evening. Deputy Minister of Tourism there, Mahlalela.